the rules of debate apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Assembly. Members should equally note that anything said in the visual platform is deemed to have been said to the House and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested to mute their microphones and only unmute when recognized to speak. This is because the mics are very sensitive and will pick up noise which might disturb the attention of other members. When recognized to speak, please unmute your microphone and connect your video. Members may make use of the icons on the bar at the bottom of their screens, which has an option that allows a member to put up his or her hand to raise points of order. The Secretariat will assist in alerting the chairperson to members requesting to speak. When using the virtual system, members are urged to refrain or desist from unnecessary points of order and interjections. Honorable members, we shall now proceed to the order, which is debate on vote number 33, Human Settlements Adjustments Appropriation Bill. I now recognize the Honorable, the Minister of Human Settlements, Water and Sanitation. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable members of Parliament, Director General, heads of provincial departments, and other officials from the Department of Human Settlements, members of boards and councils, and human settlements entities. Ladies and gentlemen, 12 months ago, I was here before you. We had great many plans. We were going to upscale delivery of houses. We declared 94 priority development spaces for human settlements. We were going to empower people to build their own houses through Stockfells. We're going to do all of those things that we knew after 25 years in government was achievable and urgent. At the end of the speech, the progressive forces in the House at that time agreed to support the department, and we set about to create programs to move forward. We were all geared up by these great many plans of what is to be done and in time, and the time in which it will be achieved. The advent of COVID-19 changed much of that. It changed the way we lived, it changed our tempo, it changed the way that we saw the world around us. It agitated for solutions here and now. It incidentally thrust us into an innovative space. It created a certain urgency around making sure people are protected from the elements, and consequently, most of the plans we laid out had to be put aside. But these plans have not been replaced. In fact, what we have done is we've got onto an even greater drive to deliver more, deliver differently, and deliver faster. Driven by the pandemic, we've been able to achieve in the past 5 months, which is something, what we've been able to achieve in the past 5 months is something completely outstanding. It may not have been part of our original plans, but it showed our ability to respond to any situation as it unfolded. At the back of this pandemic, we have gained greater impetus, provided society with greater insight into the urgency and the need for shelter, and showed the department for what it is, a caring department ready to reach out and find solutions for most of the problems that we encountered, including, unfortunately, evictions, and even more unfortunately, invasions. We will come to that later. I want to take this opportunity To thank the Directors General of the Department and the entire human settlements value chain for the urgency with which they attended to much of what was needed for the pandemic. I want to thank particularly members of the ANC Portfolio Committee for the support that they have given us in the unraveling situation that was providing us with new crises on a daily basis. They were there to help us negotiate the new terrain. I'd like to thank the Deputy Minister Chwete for holding the fort in the Eastern Cape on our behalf. I'm proud of what we've been able to show the country, a team that is dedicated to ensure that the rights of our people are given to them, a team dedicated to work for hours on end to find new solutions to the extent that it was possible to do so. Today, we are celebrated at international fora for the innovative ways we've used to house our people, notably the community in Roodepoort. In less than 3 weeks, we were able to provide 70 families in Roodepoort with decent shelter, water, and sanitation. In the Eastern Cape, we are on site building 1,000 transitional units in Buffalo City at Duncan Village. These will allow us to fast track the implementation of the Duncan Village upgrading housing project, which has been delayed for a long while through court procedures. In Gauteng, we've also got some TRUs rolled out to provide space for social distancing, as we have indicated in informal settlements. Among others, we have in Zandspruit a program to yield 1,402 units of TRUs almost as soon as we are able to put them on the ground. In Tanganani Extension 7, we will yield 1,108 units. In Rabi Ridge, we will yield 1,200 units of temporary shelter in the immediate term. The Housing Development Agency will assist government to build these TRUs. In all, we are planning to build 6,371 TRUs of these across the country, with other provinces such as KZN, Limpopo, Eastern Cape, building more with the private sector. It took this crisis to indicate to us and the world that what we're capable of. We have more plans to ensure that our people are urgently provided for with shelter. This has helped us change and find new ways to propel us forward. We have, as a result, revised most of our plans and methods to suit our current situation. We've also used level 3 provisions in our regulations to upscale the social housing yield. Most of you will have seen how we have been able to move people into new houses within the social housing environment. Where much has been lost in terms of delivery, much more has been gained in terms of credibility of our institution. We need this credibility to have our people and the private sector buy into our vision and understand our commitment. Human settlements has the greatest ability to turn around our economy after the pandemic. We have shown the private sector, we have shown the donor community, and we've shown our people, more importantly, that we are a dependable team. We look to them to invest in us, support us, and join us in our work, and adhere to the Constitution and the law. Please do not break any law under these circumstances. We would like them to invest in us. We would like them to support us positively. We want to achieve a more equitable social order. Mass housing delivery will provide us with that which the Marshall Plan provided Europe after the war. A great deal of how we have done this differently has revealed what is possible, and it has also indicated to us that as the world moves, new ways will be the dominant feature of our work for the next few years. Positively, we want to achieve, having seen the vulnerability of our people, we hope we will provide the anchor to regenerate the economy. We will provide the anchor to ensure that we rebuild the infrastructure of this country. This is especially important in order to stretch the ever more tightening fiscal purse. Each rand we will have will be used to support the people in their collaboration. Inequality that is so pervasive in our country is still our greatest need. We must, all of us, attend to this. We learned with the pandemic that we need to move together because this pandemic puts us all on an equal basis. Both the privileged and the underprivileged suffer equally. It does not choose race, gender, religion, or status. Now, more than ever, we need to focus on supporting our people to do things for themselves because they are capable of doing things for themselves within the law. We can harness the energy and the values, the success and the long-held capacity of our people, especially our women. Women have been building homes and houses for generations. We want to help them to do that and build their homes of value, which they can do with their own hands, and these will be assets that they can pass on to their children. It is our purpose to bear the full might of our resources and institutions to help people help themselves. That's the most important message we want to put across. We want to help people help themselves within the law to create wealth with their own hands. Thus, apart from releasing service sites, we are bringing partners to help people expand their efforts. Sometimes it is important to learn from our past, see what has worked and what didn't work. Last year, I talked about supporting stokvels. This was an idea that we should have vigorously followed through, but we are picking up on this now. And this is an idea that has made India's Slum Dwellers International organization an internationally acclaimed organization that has taken millions of people out of slums into decent accommodation from their own savings. This is where Sanlam and Old Mutual started their banks. Today, they are international players. We should find a formula where stokvels can be supported to the levels of the SDI, the Sanlams, the Old Mutual, you name them, to ensure that we can support our people build their own houses themselves with the support of government. As I've said, it is tempting to introduce new interventions and try new things. However, we should see how we can make sure that as we keep doing this, we are improving and yielding better outcomes. In this result, we are engaging with the private sector in our programs in order to ensure that we can bring in as many players as is possible. We have fast-tracked the release of service land because in that way, we have greater yield and less possibility of the temptation to sell or rent houses that people provide for themselves. When people have built their own houses and have created their own wealth, they are less likely to feel irresponsible or act irresponsible around the asset of a house. Ours would be to provide the infrastructure, the services, and the subsidies to bring partners on board as well to assist. Currently, we're readying ourselves and our institutions to anchor human settlements as the biggest catalyst for reinvigorating the economy after the pandemic. Recently, part of the response of COVID-19, we decided that we were going to fast-track the launch of the Elijah Bahai project in Gauteng, where 1,500 approved beneficiaries from Kuzong informal settlement are being relocated into their own homes. Hostels have also been identified as overcrowded places that would place people in danger in these circumstances. In line with what we have identified is Mamelodi Hostel, which is one of the most overcrowded hostels in the country. For de-densification programs, here we are currently constructing 1,000 temporary residential units for the residents of the hostel. In Rondiport, I instructed the HCA to intervene in providing alternative accommodation for our people who had been victims of multiple farm evictions in the area and had been living in tents for 4 years. Thanks to the combined efforts of my own team, the City of Johannesburg, and a generous donation from our private sector partner, I am happy to report that in less than 3 weeks, we were able to construct 70 very decent housing units to address the plight of our people there. This work was acknowledged by the World Bank as one of critical interventions in the fight against COVID and as part of a broader strategy to shelter our people. We are all aware of the predictions of the COVID-19 pandemic that it will remain with us for some time. How long, we do not know. This, coupled with the current housing backlog, which is estimated at 2.6 million across the country, calls for us, all of us, to redouble our efforts and also to be bold and innovative in implementing the policies and take political decisions and make sure that those political decisions are in line with the Constitution and the law. Our solutions must address persistent challenges that impede our delivery of human settlements in a way that spatially transforms our society and provides security of tenure on a broad level, that ensures that our people are living in safe and healthy environments as we continue to battle to overcome COVID-19. The banking sector has expressed renewed energy and commitment to the FLIS program. As you will remember, the FLIS program is that program that the Minister of Finance decided to dub, Help Me Build My Own House. They have committed rethinking and reimagining to finance-linked individual subsidies so that we can work better and achieve more than we have in the past. Secondly, in respect of the Zenzeleni program, this is the program where people build their own houses. The banks will develop a new regime of building bonds for low-income earners. With this program, we intend to deliver billions of rands of home assets over the medium term. The Zenzeleni program on its own has the potential to deliver wealth as much as 140 billion into the hands of beneficiaries. The model assumes that 100,000 service sites a year over the medium term, well-located land in the hands of both the Housing Development Agency and the Department of Public Works is made available legally. The NHBRC will ensure the quality of the products, that the houses are well built and in line with the standards. Finally, the operating business model of the Human Settlements Development Bank has been approved by Treasury. We thank Treasury for this. It has taken a long time, but finally we are here. This now means that the bank has become the preeminent development finance institution in human settlements and is expected to play the lead role in the refinancing of activities across human settlements value chain. We have started a process of engagement with BASA, which is the banking association, to strengthen partnerships within the banking sector and expect this yield to be positive within the near future. The NHFC has exceeded the targets of its FLIS program, which supports bank finance for first-time home buyers. The NHFC is obliged to assist the SHRA and support its funding requirements. The new NHFC now has the benefit of a larger balance sheet, thank God, to ensure that the rapid mobilization of capital to meet the demands of the SHRA program are met. The NHFC is currently involved in funding mobilization plans to raise nearly 4 billion in debt finance from the private sector and other DFIs in response to the debt funding requirements to meet 30,000 unit target alongside the SHRA grants. The potential for human settlements programs to act as both a construction stimulus and an economic lever should be noted and underscored. Employing a combination of innovative alternatives, construction technologies, which are much quicker and cost-effective than the conventional brick and mortar is what we're looking at. The HDA has been charged with dealing with this matter, and so far we are using some of these units. We have 8,000 units in major metropolitan areas around the country, and some more are in the pipeline. This is part of our contribution to alleviate the suffering of people who live in informal settlements during the COVID-19. With the budget allocation to us last year, though limited compared to the housing and settlement needs facing us, I am happy to report that together with the provinces and municipalities, we have completed a delivery of over 69,000 houses within the pandemic that we're operating in, and over 51 service sites are in the process and will be developed.
The sitting.
I must thank the MECs for human settlements in the provinces for their joint working relationship, as well as the metropolitan municipalities for advancing the development of human settlements. At this point, I again want to pay tribute to the MEC Gordon Hagilwe in the Northwest, who sadly passed away. He was one of us, the MEC for housing, due to COVID-19. He had only been with us for a year, but had done so much in that particular time. To his family and his province, the department sends its deepest condolences to you. Our priorities, which is what I want to go through for budget 33, are as follows. Together with the provinces, we will ensure that we upgrade 300 informals, improving living conditions and those conditions of households in there. Our policy is to make sure that we clear ground for informal settlements to spread to greater areas and make sure that all the necessary amenities are put in place and therefore afford them the opportunity to upgrade in situ. This means an agreement is reached, has to be reached with the community and the development plan, and has to have clear priorities and has to be planned for with the municipality and with the provincial government. This includes consolidating the occupation rights into formal tenure, access roads, water reticulation, you name it. We've put aside 2.4 billion of this for the provinces and metros to make sure that the current budget towards upgrading of informal settlements is made available almost immediately. In the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, the extent of housing needs across the country fell into sharp focus for us. The need to improve living conditions in informal settlements became an even more pressing problem. The upgrading plans that we have already agreed with the communities and municipalities need to be implemented instantly. And these need to be implemented within the law. I want to state categorically today that our program for the upgrading of informal settlements is strongly anchored in collaboration with resident communities. There can never be sustainable upgrading without the active participation and ownership of the rightful owners of that particular allocated piece of land, not land that is taken without permission. Families who reside in informal settlements have a right to be given the proper space to be able to build for themselves. Similarly, I categorically must state here today that we have witnessed organized, syndicated criminal acts of unlawful and sometimes forceful occupation of land. This will not be tolerated as it places families in harm's way and often syndicates rob families of money.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
This also goes for unlawful evictions that have been happening in the city of Cape Town. This must stop. Chairperson, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The next speaker is Honorable M.R. Semenya, the ANC. Honorable Other honorable members,
within the law.
Honorable Semenya, are you there?
She's sleeping.
Honorable Semenya.
I'm here, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here, Chair. Can you hear me?
Okay, we can go ahead, Honorable Semenya.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson. Good afternoon to honorable members, Minister and Deputy Minister and the team. Good afternoon. The year 2020 has marked a momentous year in the calendar of humanity. We are in the midst of a fast evolving pandemic. Apart from having the travels through these uncharted territories, 2020 also marks the 30th anniversary of Nelson Mandela's return from Victor Venter prison. It is thus fitting that as we navigate through the tumultuous time we look to our former statement and Dr. Nelson Mandela, who said, I quote, "When people are determined, they can overcome anything." Indeed, South Africa are determined nations, and so we must remain confident that we too shall overcome this difficult time. The creation of integrated, sustainable human settlement, restoring the dignity of our people, ensuring the security of tenure and promoting their participation in the economy is at the heart of the commitment of the African National Congress and its work. When the Minister of Finance presented the supplementary budget in June 2020, which was an adjustment budget aimed at responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, the human settlement was such a vote that has been affected. But before we dive into the changes budget, it's important to brief reflect on the state of human settlement before the pandemic. The National Department of Human Settlement 2020 and 2024 medium-term strategic framework is aimed at achieving economically, socially, and environmental sustainable human settlement and the quality of life for all. With the vision with this vision, the 94 priorities development areas were identified for human settlement development with the view of delivering 470,000 housing units, 300,000 service sites, 30,000 social rental units, 12,000 community residential units, and eradication of 1,500 unplanned settlement by the year 2024. The President, during his 2020 State of the Nation address, made commitment which had impacted on the human settlement sector, and thus informed the planning of the department in its work for the year ahead. On the 94 priority areas, the department has identified Lanseria as one of the 94 priority development areas for coordinated investment and spatial transformation. This year, department also expand their district development model to 23 districts, drawing on the lesson of the 3 pilot district projects that has been launched by the President. The priority development areas are the department's entry point to district in the support of the district model. The department actively sought to participate in the district metro model forums, including the development of IDPs and other municipal plans. The President also committed that the province and national government to redouble their support and strengthen their capacity of municipality as required by Section 154 of the Constitution and provide for the monitoring and support of such municipalities. Following the announcement of the national disaster COVID-19, a national Human Settlement Command Center was set up at the Housing Development Agency under the helm of the acting Director General and the acting CEO of HDA. All provinces and municipalities are members of the command center. Provinces and metropolitan municipalities were requested to put place measures include improving household access to water and sanitation, including in informal settlements, desertification of identified dense and overcrowded areas, and these include informal settlement, hostel inner city within its jurisdiction, and take all reasonable measures in terms of the national disaster declaration to prevent and contain and treat and eliminate COVID-19, and enhance implementation process of the project currently underway with specific focus on the informal settlement. Based on the analysis of the density and vulnerability, a total of 29 settlements were identified countrywide for intervention. Intervention were also to cover the provision of household and personal hygiene support. The intervention proposed were within the current human settlement, the vast majority of instances, the process of upgrading included desertification, either through the reblocking and or relocation. It is worth stating that in February this year, the department received the main appropriate of 81.32 billion in 2020-21 compared to 33.86 billion in 2019. In 2019-20, in the supplementary budget tabled in June 2020, a total of 5.495 billion was suspended, while a total of 2.3 billion in additional funds was allocated to the department for its COVID-19 response. The balance means that the department main allocation decreases 2.226 billion. The ANC wish to commend the department for its work and efforts, and that despite the budgetary cut, the department has worked tirelessly to caution a poor and most vulnerable members of society from the devastating effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. We also wish to reiterate the minister's words on the illegal eviction that have been taking place. Section 26(3) of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa states, no one may be evicted from their homes or have their homes demolished without the order and of the court made after considering all relevant circumstances. Further, the current regulation under the Disaster Management Act makes it illegal for any person to evict from their dwellings during the current lockdown. We thus employ municipalities such as the city of Cape Town to ensure that the human dignity of our people is restored and for them to adhere to the recent Western Cape Court order judgment, which declared the eviction and the conduct of the city of Cape Town in demolishing and evicting the people of Hangberg in Hout Bay, Cape Town, as unlawful and constitutional. In conclusion, Chair, in echoing the words of Minister Tito Mboweni, I quote, this budget marks an extraordinary supplementary budget that saves lives, protects livelihood, and actively builds a bridge to a prosperous future. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Honorable Powell.
Thank you. I would suggest that you deliver the same message around evictions to your governments in Gauteng and Lawley and eThekwini. House Chairperson, we deliberate this supplementary budget at a time of profound crisis in our nation, when millions of South Africans are currently experiencing deep and untold personal suffering, having lost their jobs, their ability to put food on their tables, and keep a roof over their children's heads. While COVID has indeed worsened South Africa's already dark as night economic prospects, we cannot fool ourselves and blame COVID for the economic state of our country, as each one of us knows very well that it is not COVID that has bled South Africa dry over the past 26 years, but rather the systemic corruption, maladministration, and looting of our nation's breadbasket by those in charge. A ruling elite of out-of-touch political cadres, driving around town in their German cars, parading across informal settlements in tailor-made suits and 6-inch stiletto heels, a ruling elite who want to eat first, drink first, claim their share of the pie first, and then toss the scraps that are left over to our poorest citizens to fight over amongst themselves. South Africa has not been brought to its knees by COVID, but rather by a government that is out of touch with the very real desperation our people feel. South Africa is currently led by people who knowingly hire incompetent political cadres to staff top government jobs that should be reserved for experts as a way to buy themselves patronage and win inner party favor. Our most crucial departments are governed by leaders who spend more time staffing political war rooms disguised as advisory panels and rapid response teams than actually focusing on the business of saving South Africa from the economic carnage that it now confronts. House Chairperson, every single one of the honourable members present here today know full well that if our money had been spent correctly and not spent badly, we would not need to be sitting here today passing further budget cuts to crucial service delivery departments like human settlements. Today is also not the first time this year that such crucial departments like housing have seen money taken off their budgets. Long before the COVID crisis came crashing across our shores, national government had already issued municipalities across the country with a formal notice of intention to cut critical delivery budgets, such as the Urban Settlements Development Grant, which municipalities use to provide basic services like taps and toilets in informal settlements. These pre-COVID cuts took place in a context where more than 13% of South Africans still live in shacks, backyard dwellings, and informal structures. That is 8 million people eking out their lives in cold as night poverty. 8 million South Africans who were already living on the breadline long before this pandemic arrived 4 months ago. Sadly, the financial crisis in which South Africa finds itself is not getting better, it's getting far worse. House Chairperson, in April of this year, National Treasury estimated that unemployment was set to increase between 30 and 70%, meaning that between 3 and 7 million people would lose their jobs before the pandemic was over. Last week, we read that 3 million people have already lost their jobs since the pandemic began. As members of Parliament, we are inundated daily by a never-ending stream of requests from desperate South Africans whose businesses have tanked, who are now unemployed, who cannot pay their bonds or their rent. And yet, to pour salt into an already gaping wound, while our nation is staring down the barrel of a gun into an unprecedented economic crisis, the Human Settlements Department, which exists specifically to help poor South Africans, is receiving the second largest budget cut of all government departments, with more than 2.26 billion rand being allocated off its balance sheet. Sadly for South Africa, it's not the minister's private office or her advisory committees or her questionable national rapid response task teams whose budgets are taking the brunt of these cuts. Rather, it is the department's 2 most important programs that are now being reduced by billions of rands. Today, we are being asked to approve a budget cut of 1.7 billion rand off the Human Settlements Development Grant. This is the money that provinces use to build formal housing. To make matters worse, when these budget cuts were presented to our portfolio committee last week, the department didn't even know how these cuts were going to impact housing delivery in 8 of the 9 provinces, because the only province that had submitted its revised housing delivery plan was the Western Cape. No surprises there. Treasury will also be taking 1.1 billion rand away from the Urban Settlements Development Grant, which densely populated municipalities use to ensure that our country's poorest people who live in shacks still have services that are fundamental to their human dignity, like taps and toilets. 1.1 billion rand taken away from taps and toilets. 377 million rand is also being taken away from the title deeds program and allocated to the emergency housing program. So while there will not be budget for title deeds that desperate families could use to raise capital to start small businesses with, the department will instead spend its money on temporary housing solutions with much lower cost spent per unit than on formal housing, rendering them far less sustainable and weaker than formal B&G houses. Beneficiaries can raise bank finance to start businesses from the title deeds of formal houses, but they cannot do the same with emergency housing. Surely during an economic crisis of this magnitude, the housing department should be prioritizing the delivery of formal houses that create jobs instead of temporary housing solutions, very few of which have even been built since the crisis began, despite announcements to the contrary. How can a government that takes money out of the title deeds program, that takes money out of the formal housing program, and then spends it on basic emergency upgrades to slums and shanty towns, call itself pro-poor? Is this the only future that our government imagines for our people? Is this the only future that our leaders can imagine for South Africa, a country where prime land is used to build cheap, temporary housing units rather than investing into proper houses and job-creating title deeds so that we can finally eradicate poverty and informality? Our people and our two most important service delivery departments should not be forced to choose between priorities like this. Our people cannot be made to choose between formal houses, title deeds, or emergency housing units. Our people need investment into all of these programs with the weight heavily in favor of sustainable formal housing development. And while our informal sector, housing sector continues to grow by thousands every day due to endemic job losses, and while Human Settlements doesn't even have a formally appointed CEO, our leaders play politics over the very serious issues of land invasions, which we all know rob law-abiding people of their chances to benefit from formal housing opportunities. All the while, national government continues to cut the budgets that municipalities use to provide services to informal settlements. How much longer can South Africa continue down this path? Surely, the time is for our people to understand that DA does not support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Perhaps the minister must listen to these speeches instead of talking to other people.
Honorable member, Honorable Musala is the next speaker from the EFF. Honorable Musala.
Alibongwe kamale EFF. Phezukwabo. Mathe.
Honorable, time is out.
Siyamfuna.
Honorable Musala. Honorable Musala.
Balekile.
Honorable Musala.
Chairperson, you hear me?
Khona.
Yes, I can hear
She's
you.
sleeping. She's sleeping.
Go
Who's
Chairperson.
sleeping? It's you.
Yes.
It's you who's
Yes,
sleeping.
Right in the,
Honorable Conte, could you please give Honorable
Musala, please wake up, Musala.
Honorable Musala, please continue.
Wake up, Musala, please.
Hey,
Chairperson. Chairperson,
Okay, Honorable Member.
thank you much. Chairperson, right in the middle of a very cold winter day in Cape Town, South Africa and the whole world witnesses the brutality of landlessness, the inhumanity of not having a home, and the sheer violence of the state. When Bulelani Xolani was mercilessly pulled out of the structure, he called a home by the city of Cape Town. He was completely naked because he was taking a bath when the city of Cape Town arrived. They did not even offer him an opportunity to dress up, and they later lied and said he undressed himself deliberately. As with all the violence meted out against Black people in this country, the nation has moved on, and Xolani has become a hysterical annexure. Xolani and the many Black people evicted from their homes all over the country are set examples of how the post-1994 establishment has completely abandoned its historical mission. He is a reminder of how corrosive, insensitive, and demeaning to others' power can be if held by those without emancipatory consciousness. More importantly, his example shows the urgency with those of us who still have some conscience should prioritize the resolution of the land question in this country. The resolution of the urban housing problem is tied at the hip with the resolution of the land question. People end up building in unsuitable places because they have nowhere else to build. Chairperson, there are almost 1.4 million households in informal settlement in this country, housing millions more people. These places, there's no running water, no toilets, there's no electricity, they are congested. These are the perfect conditions for the spread of COVID-19. There can be no physical distancing in informal settlement, Minister Sisulu. What COVID-19 has clearly demonstrated is the spectacular failure of the post-1994 brigade to safeguard the dignity of the people. The downward adjustment of the overall budget of this department shows in earnest that ensuring that people have access to proper housing was never a priority of this brigade. We have also noted the so-called new proposal by President Cyril Ramaphosa called the New District Development Model, which is just a renaming of the previously failed government program. This again proves that the NC has run out of ideas and they are swimming in a pool of bankruptcy when it comes to new ideas. They are unable to come up with new concepts and ideas that will deal with the socio-economic challenges that our people are facing. We call upon for the establishment of housing access coordinating units that include national, provincial, and local governments, which will then on a regular basis report to the President on progress with housing provision, the elimination of slums, and the provision of dignified sanitation. Such unit will not only allow the Department of Human Settlement, Water and Sanitation to monitor progress and cap down corruption in local municipalities, but it will also assist the department to carry out its work in a more effective and efficient manner. In the immediate, we call for a complete ban on evictions of people whose only sin is homelessness. We further call for a moratorium on bank repossession of houses for at least a year to allow people who have just lost jobs as a result of COVID-19 to get back on their feet again. We call for permanent ban of bank repositions of people who have paid their bonds for at least 10 years or more. We cannot, with this unnecessary revolutionary, with the necessary revolutionary consciousness, accept this adjusted budget. Thank you.
Commissar!
Thank you,
Bashaya
Honorable.
mfana wami. Bashaya wabanabisa. A commissar must be a soldier. Wow.
Honorable Ngwezi is the next speaker from the IFP. Honorable Ngwezi.
Thank you very much.
Noma ngabe sakhuluma EFF iqedile.
Makaula, don't disrupt our debate. Makaula, don't disrupt our debate.
Makaula, please give us a chance. Honorable Ngweze.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister and Deputy Ministers, colleagues. The IFP has consistently been raising the problematic implementation on agreed projects by this department. It is very disturbing to see the lack of attention paid to people's living and housing conditions. The lack of implementation and accountability has been exposed under the current lockdown regulations and the requirements to keep our people safe from the COVID-19 pandemic. The consistent failure to meet targets is not a new thing, and South Africans must not be fooled into thinking that failure to reach targets are as a result of COVID. For example, is in KwaZulu-Natal, where I recently conducted my own research and found that in areas like Nongoma, Ulundi, Mhlathuze, Umlalazi, to name a few, people were still waiting for housing since 2012. This is not a mere delay, as there was no COVID pandemic running from 2012. We note that even implementing agents have been appointed and yet people are still waiting. The suspension of the Housing and Urban Settlement Development Grant being delayed will not be accepted as an excuse by this department, as these projects were approved for before the world even knew about COVID-19 pandemic. It is now time that we call for accountability and demand answers from the department on what happened to the money. Has it been stolen? And by what date will the minister and the department, as head of the department, commit to the housing projects being finalized and delivered to the people? The IFP calls for a report by the minister regarding her plan to address the housing crisis in the above mentioned areas. While we await a response by the minister, we note the funds allocated to the title deeds restoration grant has seen a 66.8% decrease. This decrease is very worrying, as there is still a major backlog of title deeds that need to be issued. We have reports where people have already died waiting for their title deeds, which additionally complicates the process afterwards, as a dispute arises regarding who should now receive the title deed. The previous and current pace at which the department is working at is unacceptable, and we call for this title deed program to meet all its targets and put the issue to rest over the next 2 years. We believe it is in the capacity for the department to do so. The reduction of funds for this program should not be a reflection on the government's willingness to deliver on promises of title deeds in this regard. As the IFP does not believe that the adjusted budget has directly affected the above mentioned historic problems of housing and title deeds. However, with the concerns raised, we support this budget vote. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mthonishwa Ngwezi. The next person on the platform is the Honorable May from the FF Plus. But immediately thereafter, the Honorable Janji will take over as the Deputy Minister comes in. Honorable May. Honorable May. Do we have Honorable May?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Honorable May. Shoot.
Okay, thank you. The enemy is invisible and the walls are those of self-isolation. Dit is nie die inwoners van informele nedersettings beskore nie. Ja, COVID-19 het die haaglike en onhygiëniese toestande in informele nedersettings uitgewys. Die grootste oorsaak vir die verspreiding van COVID-19 in Suid-Afrika is as gevolg van dig beboude informele nedersettings in Suid-Afrika. In die laat 80er jare is mense verskuif vanaf Langaan uit 'n Laag na KwaNobuhle en Uitenhage. Die stadsklerk was meneer Eddie Coetzee, 'n man met 'n visie vir KwaNobuhle. Hy was baie trots op KwaNobuhle en het baie vir my gesê dit moet die spogplek in die Oos-Kaap word. Meneer Coetzee is ingelig dat die mense van Langa na KwaNobuhle moes verskuif. Hy het geweier om hulle oornag te aanvaar, het gesê hulle is baie welkom, maar ek wil informele nedersettings in Suid-Afrika verander. Meneer Coetzee sal ek nooit vergeet nie. Binne 2 maande het hy die hele informele nedersetting verander in Suid-Afrika. En daardie tyd het hy 'n behuisingsprobleem aangepak wat mense verstom het. Erwe is oornag uitgesit. Hy het 10 kontrakteurs aangestel vir die bou van sinkhuise.
Ek soek ons land, meneer.
80 huise is per dag gebou. Mense het gestroom. Hulle is nie verwyder nie. Hulle het gestroom van Langa na KwaNobuhle. Dienste was maklik om te voorsien en die rede was daarvoor dat dit geordende informele nedersettings is. Binne 4 jaar is al die sinkhuise vervang en is steenhuise gebou. Maar die belangrikste van alles is dit, dat daardie sinkhuise wat hulle opgeslaan het bestaan uit 4 panele. En sy bedoeling was dat dit in die toekoms moet hergebruik word. Hulle moet, waar nuwe ontwikkeling sou kom. Honorable Minister, place a moratorium on the building of brick houses only for 1 year. The price of a brick house can build 7 zinc houses. Dit is so maklik om die probleem in Suid-Afrika op te los. Ek ry elke dag verby 'n plakkerskamp. Dit is 'n skande waar die mense woon. Nie een van ons wil hê dit moet ooit gebeur nie, maar die regering laat dit toe omdat daar nie geordende informele nedersettings in Suid-Afrika nie is nie. Statistiek Suid-Afrika het verlede week bekend gemaak ons is 60 miljoen mense. Hulle voorspel in 2030 sal ons 70 miljoen wees. Ons moet iets doen daaromtrent. Die eerste is, ons kan nie vir Afrika behuising en gesondheidsdienste gee nie. Meneer die voorsitter, dit rig verantwoordelik die regering, maar ook die bevolkingsaanwas in Suid-Afrika te temper. Wat sanitasie in Suid-Afrika betref, is die toestand haglik. Ons sien elke dag die riots in ons paaie. Daar word geen gelewer nie. Ek betaal elke maand my erfbelasting en water. En ek wil vir u sê, ek het persoonlike ondervinding gehad. Ek wil nie eens praat oor die Vaal rivier nie. Verlede maandag het die riool geloop van my buurman oor my erf die straat. Ons het elke dag gekontak. Niks is gedoen nie. Donderdagmiddag, en ek moet dit nou noem, het 'n afgetrede persoon van die Nelson Mandela Metro my besoek. Hy het gevra wat gaan aan. Hy het gesê hy gaan nou bel. En toe ek hierdie slegte nuus ontvang. Hy het gesê, ek wil jou verseker, hulle is almal op 'n slow strike deur die week. Saterdag of Sondag sal hulle kom. Saterdagoggend 10:00 het hulle gearriveer. Dit is nie aanvaarbaar vir belastingbetalers nie.
Baie dankie. Baie dankie, agbare.
Ek soek ons land.
Speaker, the Minister of Human Settlements, Water and Sanitation, Honorable Deputy Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. In the interest of time, please allow me to say all protocol observed. We are here to present the Department of Human Settlements budget vote at a time when our country is going through devastating effects of COVID-19. I want to take this opportunity to pay my sincere condolences to the family that lost their loved ones through this horrific virus, especially to the family of Kaunda Ntunja, who through his long-term friendship with my children has almost become one of my own. We are learning new norms in doing our work. Honorable Chairperson, as a department and ministry, we are here at the forefront in implementing the district development model, which some of the doomsayers are questioning here today. We find it practical to work with the upper tiers of government. It will remain the district development model. It will never change. as long we are in power, it's very unfortunate that we are going to work as district development model. Just after taking last year the office, I visited the Ndokozweni in the OR Tambo district municipality in the Eastern Cape, where certain concerns were raised. The result was a coordinated intervention that addressed these various concerns because of district development model, leading to houses being built and handed over to destitute families in the district that were affected by disaster. This program addressing the needs of the indigent remains our priority as the department through our provinces and municipalities. Guided by principles underpinning the district development model, in March this year, we championed a number of meetings between three spheres of government. The purpose was to address the concerns of the community of the informal settlements called Kanana in Cape Town. As a result, we managed to resolve one of the burning issues in the housing delivery chain, where 99 beneficiaries have already been relocated to Forest Village housing project, with 51 more still to be moved. We're talking about permanent houses, Comrade Power, or Honorable Power. This is in line with the Minister's Zulu's commitment to fast-track the upgrading of informal settlements in order to mitigate against the impact of COVID-19. Honorable members, including our budget vote in July 2019, we announced that we would collaborate with provinces and municipalities in fast-tracking the issuing of title deeds to our people. We tackled this task head-on in KwaZulu-Natal and Limpopo with NEC's executive mayors and councillors. In dealing with challenges of title deeds, we visited provinces that were hugely affected by this. We met with premiers. Going forward, we all agreed that we'll monitor the performance of this program. Sizakuqinisekisa njengokuba uminister ebetshilo ukuba amakhosikazi nolutsha ayinxalenye yokwakha izindlu. I-30% ebekelwe oomama kunye ne-10% ebekelwe ulutsha mayifumaneke, mabanikwe amakhosikazi nolutsha malunikwe. Sizimisele ekuphisiseni amakhosikazi nolutsha kulakhiwo lwezindlu. Sithi nabani ofuna ukuma endleleni yethu siza kumgilayo kuwa, siyaqhuba asimanga ngenxa yabantu abaziphazamisi. Honorable members, this country men and women of the mass democratic movement had to sacrifice for this movement, their lives and livelihood, and stood at the forefront of liberation struggle to fight for this democracy. Democracy. This is therefore befitting that we acknowledge that military veterans of all progressive different movements are owed a great deal by this country. Military veterans ezalwela lenkululeko siclaimayo abanye bethu abangayaziyo. We have delivered a reasonable number of quality homes.
What you say about graveyard, that one you dig it.
We are determined to sort out all these minor glitches standing in our way in completing this task. This important task of providing houses for our veterans remains work in progress. Asizukumiswa ngabantu abavuka izolo abangayaziyo inkululeko efinweleyo.
Instead of building,
sifumane amakhosikazi aza kumisa izindlu. Sithi imihlaba le mayingathathwa ngobumenemene, mayithathwe ngendlela right. Siyatshona ngoku indlela asizokuyivumela into yoba bakhuthe umhlaba ngendlela erongo.
Instead of building house, we are stealing.
Deputy Minister, masibamba apha emihlabeni. The next speaker will be Honorable Meshwe from Honorable Meshwe.
Speaker, COVID-19 has sharply brought up to the fore acute deficiencies of the Department of Human Settlements in fulfilling its mandate as prescribed by the Constitution and Housing Act of 1997. The key indicators demonstrate the failure of the Department of Human Settlements are the following. Our people still have no access to adequate housing. The state has failed dismally to facilitate sustainable housing development in all three spheres of government. Whereas housing is a basic human right and should be a key sector of national economy, South Africa is nowhere near facilitating access to decent housing, which is the key mandate of the department. The socio-economic well-being of most South Africans is in ruins. This because of the failure of government and the department for the last 26 years. Human settlement has failed to become an agent for positive change for most of our people. Chairperson, the reality on the ground is that conditions under which 5 million South African shack dwellers are forced to live are unbearable and in some places inhuman. They are forced to manage without electricity, proper sanitation, safety and reliable security, refuse collection, and fires are an ever-present risk. And in some places, up to 100 people have to share a single communal tap. Being told to comply with lockdown regulations becomes impossible when even their shacks are not socially distanced from their neighbors. The ACDP has chosen to heed the advice of a group of nearly 100 experts consisting of economists and researchers who have sent a warning about the adjusted budgets. They have even called on Parliament to reject the supplementary budget delivered by the Finance Minister on Wednesday, 24th June 2020, by calling it an economic suicide. The initial 2020-21 human settlement budget of 35.1 billion rands has been reduced by 2.3 billion rands to 32 billion rands. This means that the reduction of 2.3 billion rands will weaken the department's ability to deal effectively with housing backlog challenges and will further increase the vulnerability and health risks of those who live in congested and overpopulated informal settlements in particular.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Will therefore not support this proposed budget. Thank you.
Honorable Member, on that vulnerability. The next speaker will be Honorable Zungula from ATM.
I want to condemn all the evictions done, especially during a pandemic. It is a reality. Poor Black South Africans are living in shacks and unbearable living conditions all over the country. Majority of Black people live very far from areas of economic activity, and they spend more than half of their salaries in order to get to work. The African Family Unit has broken down precisely because Black men and women spend more than 8 hours a day at work and on average 5 hours traveling to and from work. This is an inhumane apartheid human settlement arrangement. As a result, Black parents do not have sufficient time with their children, and the children get to be consumed by social ills. It is a shame 26 years into democracy, we still have majority of people who have to wake up at 4 a.m. in order to get to work at 8 a.m. Many Black people often use up to 5 taxis just to get to work. People cannot travel for more than 80 kilometers a day just to get to work. This must change. The department must address this problem in order to restore the dignity of Black people. The department must look at the existing inner city buildings and transform them into world-class living communities for our people. It is disappointing how our people live in shacks, eNyanga, eGugulethu, ePhilippi, and they have to contend with their homes being flooded every time it rains. This is why the urban dwellings, which is the places closest to areas of economic activity, have been taken over by foreigners. Bedford View, Parklands, Hillbrow, Sentin, Brooklyn, Dunoon, Camps Bay, Balito, Sunnyside Point, to name a few places, should be dominated by citizens to deal with the problems I've mentioned. Inner city dwellings in Tanzania are reserved for locals. Students, young couples, and workers live in these spaces in order to be in a prime position in their own country. The Chinese do this all over the world, including here in South Africa. In the China Mall by Dragon City, there is a block of flats reserved for Chinese citizens, so they can be close to the area of economic activity. If the Chinese provide settlements that are advantageous to their people, even in a foreign country, what is stopping South Africa to reserve the inner city dwellings for its people in the CBDs? Other countries are patriotic in their approach. It is time for us to do the same for our people. The inner city dwellings must be reserved only for South Africans. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Honorable August from Good.
Honorable Chairperson, those with long memories will recall the first government of the democratic era promising to build 1 million RDP houses in its 5-year term. It was an over-ambitious target, not quite reached, but it spoke to the priority of constructing roofs over 5 families' heads. In the 2000s, the provision of subsidized houses began to speed up. By 2006, the National Department of Human Settlements reported that more than 270,000 housing opportunities were delivered in just 1 year. Then delivery slowed down again. According to the ruling party, over the past 4 years, an average of 107,000 houses were built across the country. That is a 60% decline. It has nothing to do with balancing supply and demand. The backlog is there for all to see in the informal settlements. For 15 years, the government has been delivering less while demand has increased. And now we meet here today to discuss cutting that budget further. A portion of the Urban Settlement Development Grant funding is returned to Treasury each year because some housing projects run behind or become stalled. I support the need for some of the money that is usually returned at the end of the year to come back earlier. We need it now so that we can fight the global health crisis we are in. We need to pay for extra nurses, doctors, hospital beds, and medical equipment. We need protective gear for teachers, healthcare, and law enforcement workers. And we need more money for social support that was anticipated when these budgets were allocated last year. I regret the cuts and the fact that we still see fewer families in secure accommodation as a result. But I support the fight against COVID and the measures we need to take to save lives. We must ensure that the money is not looted. And when the COVID crisis is over, we must reallocate the funds back to housing, especially the 377 million reduced for the deeds, so that those with homeowners can participate and stimulate the economy further. Honorable Chair, even as we fight the deadly disease, we must never abandon our quest to use public land for public good. Wisely spent, the funds in human settlements must address the relationship between space and race and provide families with dignity, comfort, security, and real financial assets in the form of title deeds. Thank you.
Thank you. We now proceed to Honorable Teke.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. Am I audible?
Malibongwe.
Malibongwe.
Order. Honorable Semenya. Honorable Semenya. Order. Go ahead, Honorable Tseke.
Thank you very much, Host Chair. When the ANC, greetings to everyone. When the ANC came to power in South Africa in 1994, the country faced a stark housing crisis. Black people were living in an inadequate, overcrowded, and informal settlement. As we are speaking, the ANC-led government has built more than 4 million houses with electricity, water supply, sanitation, schools, and other basic services. Therefore, we must appreciate that the ANC is still in charge and we are a nation at work. Honorable Minister, the majority of the South Africans who voted for us in power wants to commend this government led by the African National Congress and the Department of Women's Settlement and its entities in particular on the work that they have undertaken to assist them during these difficult times of the COVID-19 pandemic. We applaud the department on its strategies and implementation plans for the COVID-19 pandemic. Some of these mitigations measures include minimizing and mitigating the rate of COVID-19 infection and spread through intervention in vulnerable households and communities, focusing in hostels, inner cities, and informal settlement, which are congested and overcrowded. The distribution of sanitizers and other cleansing support, and in certain provinces and in certain instances, provinces and municipalities undertook disinfection activities, and this occurred in the Free State city of Joburg and in eThekwini. The ANC welcomes the intervention honorable members identified in 29 settlements which were congested and overcrowded. These include, amongst others, Stretla, Mamelodi Hostels, Diepsloot in Gauteng, Duncan Village in the Eastern Cape, as the minister has confirmed, Tanun in the Western Cape, Witikong informal settlement in Rustenburg, in Zandspruit, in Ivory Park. The list is endless, Honorable Musana. Therefore, we welcome the work that has already commenced, Honorable Minister, in Mamelodi Hostels, which was long overdue.
But you got a wrong information.
Hi, Makaula Tula. House in Buffalo City and in Stretla informal settlement in Alexander, and households that have been relocated from the Kuzon to completed units into the Elijah Barai project. Indeed, Minister, we are a nation at work. Based on the need to ensure the informal settlements are upgraded an amount of approximately 4 billion is set aside in the budget for this objective. It will ensure that people receive the dignity they deserve in terms of their condition. This grant will also allow for land acquisition and development, as well as provision of essential services. Formed part of the Department of Women's Settlement to be implemented.
Just pause, Honorable Tseke. Honorable Kaula, the chairperson, when we started this proceeding, explained the rules of this virtual. I'm going to tell you you're out of order. I will not repeat it. Go ahead, Honorable Tseke.
Thank you very much, Chair. This grant will also allow for land acquisition and development, as well as provision of essential services. The ANC reiterated this funding formed part of the Department of Women's Settlement plan to be implemented long before COVID-19. Honorable House Chair, we know that some entities have not been impacted by the supplementary budget and thus working within the framework of the approved budget. As the ANC, we welcome the steps taken by the department on the emergency housing grant, which will now be administered by the National Department. The inability of provinces and municipalities to respond to emergencies and disasters has been a concern, yes, to the ANC and has thus compromised many communities. We also welcome the budget set aside to assist people in the rental housing and those who cannot pay their bond due to COVID-19 pandemic. As the ANC, we'll ensure that we closely monitor this intervention to ensure that our people do not find themselves in worse conditions due to this pandemic. Honorable Chair, in the spirit of commemorating Madiba, I too wish to quote him when he said, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we lead. Thus, we appeal to the department to continue making a difference on the lives of many South Africans who look to the ANC-led government to improve their material condition and to effectively use this supplementary budget to assist the poor and the working class. We, as the progressive force, Honourable Minister, support the 2020 supplementary adjustment budget. Number 31. Thank you.
That will proceed to the speaker from COPE. COPE, the platform is yours. Is COPE in the house? I repeat, COPE. We will proceed to the next party, the PAC. The PAC. Not in the house, not on virtual.
Yeah, give EFF.
I will now call upon Sheikh from NFP to take the platform.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for the opportunity. Let me start off by saying, in fact, we did not anticipate COVID-19. And I'm not in agreement, Chairperson, when I repeatedly hear people say that COVID-19 had highlighted the challenges that we have on the ground. Actually, what COVID-19, we've always knew about some of the challenges that we are experiencing on the ground. But what COVID-19 has done is it's aggravated the situation because a lot of the budget now has to be reduced from certain departments and redirected to help fight COVID-19. And that's generally what has happened. We must not also forget, Chair, that the population over the last 24 years have grown enormously. And together with that is an increase in the demand for housing. And that is why we as the NFP have always said, it is not the responsibility of government to actually provide the housing. It is their responsibility to ensure that everybody is housed. And that's why we said the idea of the Human Settlement Development Bank being able to provide land to people, create a bank which will give people loans at a very low interest rate so that they could, in fact, it's a public-private partnership, they could build decent homes, not even these one-room RDP houses, but they will build decent homes. So you're taking away the responsibility, you're allowing them to live in better socio-economic or better quality of home, and that's the route basically to go. But where you're experiencing difficulty, Chairperson, is when like the urban settlement development grants are not being spent and billions of rands are being returned to the fiscus or to treasury. This is not acceptable, and that is why the national department needs to be given a little bit more powers in being able to deal with this. Now, let me talk about the concerns raised, particularly the evictions. Evictions continued even during lockdown when we say the eviction should not take place. But over and above eviction, electricity were being disconnected. Then locks on doors have been changed. Water has been disconnected because people are at the mercy of landlords and municipalities. This is where we say the minister must be given added powers to be able to deal with it and also provide legal assistance, particularly to these victims at court. Because if you want to go there and bring a spoliation order, because your landlord or the municipality has disconnected your electricity because you didn't pay rent, they do not have the money for legal fees. This is where we're saying the department must come in and let us put additional measures so that we'll be able, whose rights are being violated by either farm owners or landlords or municipalities who continue to violate their human rights in depriving them of it. Now, we must admit that the cutting of this budget was paramount to be able to redivert that money. So there's no point in sitting and complaining about these things. But I think what we need to do is more, to do more with the less budget that we have got. And where we've got challenges is to be able to...
Thank you, Honorable Iman Sheikh. Thank you very much. Proceed to Honorable Hendricks Al-Jama.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, we must thank the Minister for lobbying that we managed to get what we got in the budget. She was lobbying, shouting and screaming, and we thank her for all the hard work. Having said that, Honorable Chair, the Minister provides housing to workers of many companies. It is now up to these companies to try and make up the shortfall so that the minister can achieve original objectives. Honorable Chair, a lot has been said about evictions, but Jama-ah feels that evictions should be a mandate of the minister and the department, and that no court of law must issue an eviction order unless they haven't heard from her department before making such a determination. Because these evictions embarrass the good work that the Minister's Department is doing. Lastly, Honorable Chair, next month is Month of the Women. And I think that it is very important that on the radar, it must be a vision that every woman must have decent housing in South Africa, and that will go a long way to reduce gender-based violence. And it is by time that the minister tries and do some research and comes up with a master plan so that everyone in South Africa that needs housing will have a roof on their heads. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Hendricks. I will now call on Honorable Seposengwe from the ANC, and thereafter I will yield back to Honorable Ntombela to proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson, honorable members in the House and members on the virtual platform. We are so surprised that the DAs are taking us like they do. They don't see anything wrong that in the middle of this crisis, they decide to see a splinter in the eye of the ANC and ignoring the biggest plank in their eye. The inequality which is so pronounced in the Western Cape is a sore point. They will never say anything positive about the ANC. It's actually stooping so low to be looking at negativity during times like this. It's also interesting to see Honorable Powell now being a champion of the people's struggle. Shame on you. The tabling of the 2020 supplementary budget was necessitated by the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic downturn in the country. The COVID-19 pandemic required global action by all nation states to draft and implement a variety of mitigation strategies to reduce exposure to an impact of COVID-19. The responses by individual countries to the pandemic was critical in influencing the trajectory of national epidemics. To role and functions performed by the Department of Human Settlements and its entities are crucial in promoting the quality of human settlements, providing social housing, promoting the interest of housing consumers, ensuring more inclusion and participation in the human settlements value chain in light of the recent global pandemic. The ANC wishes to commend the department on the work it has undertaken thus far and will continue to undertake as a means of fighting the invisible enemy we are faced with. It is worthwhile to take stock of some of the interventions made by the department. Thank you to you, Minister, which include but not limited to the following. The measures being implemented includes the provision of personal and household hygiene support, sanitizers, information on making of masks, provision of soap in the provinces where subsidized houses were in the process of being completed. The process is being expedited to allow for relocation of households out of informal settlements. Chairperson, I just want to, just a minute, in conjunction with the Department of Social Development and local community-based organizations, households are being assisted to access food relief and social grant assistance. In the metropolitan municipalities, suitable vacant buildings have been identified to accommodate people living on the streets, with the HDA and CSIR areas of high vulnerability within informal settlements, hostels, and inner cities have been identified to ensure areas
are targeted for screening and testing. And a ministerial directive supplemented by regulations directed a moratorium has been placed on any eviction. I'm already a lot of alluded to. But let me also say to you, Chairperson, that the ANC notes with concern the matter that provinces and municipalities not having submitted business plans. As such, we wish to implore the department to ensure that provinces and municipalities should submit their revised business plans in accordance with the supplementary budget as tabled by the Minister of Finance in June this year. On the title deeds restoration grant, we note also that there would be a reduction of 377.82 million rand, and that would affect the number of the title deeds being issued. The ANC is concerned that there was poor expenditure in the title deeds program in the previous financial year. Despite there being a huge backlog in the issue of title deeds, we're equally informed that this grant will be phased out, but we must clarify that does not mean the title deeds program will cease to exist, but rather that will be funded under the Human Settlement Development Grant. We urge the department to ensure that the program adequately addresses the historical backlog and that it addresses the needs of ensuring deserving beneficiaries receive their title deeds. We also note with concern the rejection of the supplementary budget from opposition parties. It must be emphasized that the COVID-19 pandemic knows no political allegiance, neither does it need politicking from parties. What is needed here is a unified and a collective approach to fight this invisible enemy and work towards forging a unified approach going forward. I also wanted to say, Chairperson, that if we don't stand together at the end of the day, the people who are at the receiving end are the ones who suffer most. In closing, I wish to echo the sentiments of President Nelson Mandela when he said, I quote, "It always seems impossible until it's done," close quote. Indeed, what initially seemed to be an impossible task has been made possible by the ANC-led government. As the ANC, we wish to express our support to the supplementary budget and call on the department to continue working to ensure our people are cushioned from the devastating impact of the pandemic. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Our next and last speaker will be the Minister, the Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank all of those members who have the sense of responsibility towards the poor to have supported this budget. And I then want to go to those who have a few words of wisdom, which turn out to be just empty sloganeering learned from the lips of the rich. Chairperson, Honorable Powell says of us that we are not delivering. We are only delivering temporary housing. What have they delivered? They have delivered in this country the most number of evictions, worst cases of inhumanity. Provided us. They have put us on the world map. Internationally, you see us on the screen with the evictions that have been occasioned by the Western Cape government. She says to us here that they say here that they are the only one who provided a plan to the Department of Human Settlements. She is telling a blue lie. They have not, they have actually asked for an extension. That must be retracted. No lies are allowed. Here is something else that you must know. The Western Cape has not spent in the last year in the city of Cape Town a total of 874 million rands. When our people are out there in shacks, this is the amount of money that has been taken back by the Treasury. This is the kind of people who don't care. If you cared, I'll tell you what you should do. What you should do.
You're still busy with bucket toilets, man.
Those pieces of land where there is nothing there, and parcel them out and give them to the poor so they can live. And most of the people who own that land are in your constituency, are in your party. Go do the right thing and show us what you're with. We have done everything. We have provided this country the highest number of housing units that you can ever find in the world. Go and check it in Google or anywhere else. We're very proud of what this government has done. Finally, I must warn you that should you ever continue again with evictions in the way that you have done and bring this government into disrepute, we will take you to court, each one of you personally, especially you, Emma. I'd like to thank those people who have elucidated what
point of order, Chairperson.
Especially the Imam for clarifying what it is that we're here to do. I'd like to thank
Chairperson, the members asked for a point of order. Can you please
Be
take
quiet.
point of order?
Shut up, Wena. Faba.
What point of order? There's no point of
You are
order.
not sharing.
Honorable Minister.
I'd like to
Chairperson, this is still a meeting, so there should be
Honorable
points of
Minister.
order.
A point of order has been raised. What is your point of order, honorable member?
Chairperson, could you ask the minister to address me by my formal title and not by my first name? We are in a sitting of the House. And further, I would be willing to provide the minister with the evidence of my assertion that by last Wednesday.
That is not the point of order, Chair. That's not the point of order.
Honorable members, order, honorable members. Honorable member, you are merely expressing an opinion, and I would encourage members to use the word honorable to refer to each other, but other than that, you are merely expressing your own opinion. Honorable
Chair.
Minister, can you continue?
Yes, Chairperson, let the minister just then please also
Honorable
refer
Minister, you can continue.
all the member, honorable member Pell.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member Paul can provide me with her address. That is what is needed from her. May I continue? I'd like to request the EFF. Please do not urge people to occupy land that does not belong to them. Let us work at this together and find suitable land over to the government and therefore to the community where we can provide secure places for our people to live in. It is not right that you should break the law. While the DA breaks the law on a regular basis with having illegal evictions, we should not respond by breaking the law in the same way by occupying land. Please stick to the law. We're here. When you were evicted in Poland, you knew who to call. I am now coming back to you to say, let's work.
Minister, that's why they are
It's
occupying.
also sticking to the law.
Honorable members, order, please.
We can't hear Minister Chairperson.
Honorable members, please.
I am pleading, therefore, with the EFF, let us work together to provide our people with decent
There is a
shelter.
material of what 95 people need.
We are here, and we have been here. Whenever you called on us, we've been here to assist you.
You are not there for the people of what 95.
Order, honorable member.
It's not true. You were not there. And I'd like to thank everybody who has contributed to this. It was necessary because we did not plan for the COVID epidemic, and we have to live with it. Any of the other matters that have had to do with housing and moaning and bemoaning, all of these things have no relevance here. Right now, we have to deal with what we have. We've had to rearrange our budget, and this is what we have to live with. Thank you very much to members of the ANC.
Thank you very much, honorable.
Malibongwe.
Kamela.
Well done, Minister. Thank you very much.
Honorable members.
Thank you, Minister.